Hi everyone, and thanks for being here. After building your PC, let's say gaming or streaming or even as a creator, what do you do next and what are the apps you must have on your build? Well, after installing the OS, let's say Windows, here are 5 apps you must have on your build. Before starting and going through the details of these apps, let me say that these apps don't involve security or productivity, but are just tools that help you maintain your build the most efficiently possible. Alright, the first app that I would suggest is the app that is managing your GPU. In this case, this build have an Nvidia GPU, so I'm using the Nvidia App. Of course, if you have an AMD GPU, you can use the equivalent of AMD. Having an app for managing the GPU is very important because here you can download drivers, install drivers, and check if there are some bug fixes and so on. In this case, you can go also and optimize games if you want, or apps, whatever they are. So you can go and optimize certain settings that you might think that are okay. You can go through some other settings, for example, the overlay. Here we have an Nvidia overlay if you want to check those temps and those settings on your games or whatever other app you are using. So this is the first app in my opinion that should not miss your build, especially of course if you have a discrete GPU installed. Now with the Nvidia app you can check certain settings, you can change certain settings, and you can change settings related to games and so on. But if you want to change more settings on your GPU depending on what GPU you have, you might need another tool. For example, here I'm using an Asus GPU and I'm using the GPU 3, the version, this is the 3 version 1.7.7.0, and here you can change certain settings which can allow you to overclock your GPU or undervolt your GPU. I have made a video on that, so I will leave the link down in the description so you guys can go and check how to change those settings and how to get most of your GPU. But for checking certain settings that you cannot do with the Nvidia app or AMD app depending on your build, this might become helpful and help you to change certain settings depending on the scenario you're using the GPU. If you're using the discrete GPU for gaming or for video editing or for other apps, you can use certain settings here. You can change certain settings on the clock boost, memory clock, power target, whatever GPU voltage. Then for example, you might not want the GPU to go above the temps that you have here on the target, and then you can set the temp here, and whatever the GPU is reaching the temp, it's going to block. So this is something I find really useful. If you have another GPU which is not an Asus GPU, you can use MSI Afterburner that is basically compatible with all the GPUs out there. So after the two tools regarding the GPU, we have another interesting tool which is OCCT. This is a personal version and this is a free version with certain limitations. Anyway, you can use it for benchmarking your system to see how it's performed and how it's performing in terms of stress test with stability and with temps and with the clock frequency for all your components like the motherboard, the CPU, the GPU, and here we have also the memory. I'm going to go here quickly. You can benchmark your CPU, your memory, and the latency bandwidth. You can also go through the stability test for checking if your system is stable at a certain point. This is just an indication because it depends on what kind of app you are using and what kind of games you are gaming, for example. So this is just to let you know if your system is stable in a certain way. So whenever you are changing some settings on your GPU, or if you want to overclock your CPU through the BIOS, you have to go and check here on the OCCT personal for just having an idea if those settings that you have changed are going to make the system crash or are going to be okay with whatever scenario you are using it. Often while gaming, you might want to see how your system is performing, what are the FPS, what are the temps, and so on. In this case, you can use a tool called Riva Tuner Statistics Server that is compatible with other tools. For example, if you want to use MSI Afterburner, then you have to use the Riva Tuner Statistics Server in order to show those statistics on your screen. You can use other tools, for example, in GPU Tweak. If you have an Asus GPU, for example, here we have the on-screen display statistics, and we can enable this one. You can use also the Nvidia overlay and so on. I prefer to use the Riva Tuner Statistics Server together with ADAS64 because I have a small screen on my system which I have set it up with this one. You can check the video on how to set up this kind of small displays in my channel. I will leave also the link in the description so you guys can go and check out also how to set up this one. So in this case, I'm using a small display for showing all the statistics, and then the tool I'm using here is ADAS64, which have a free version that you cannot use all the sensors and so on. So if you want to use it with fully compatible with all the on-screen statistics and going through all the sensor panel settings and so on, you have to pay for that. So this is a command that I'm using for checking all the performances on my system whenever I'm gaming, or even for example when I'm using my video editor, it's showing again temps and so on. So I'm just paying attention to that if there is something strange going on my system. And the last tool is just for monitoring your system. If you want to have an idea, overall idea, and also have some details on what's going on with your components, for example, CPU, memories, or temps in GPUs, and whatever else, you can use this tool, which is called HWMonitor, which lets you know in real time what are some of the values of your components. For example, here we have the voltages of the GPU, temp of the GPU, and powers, how much power is draining the GPU, the clocks utilization, and so on, performance, and so on. You can have really all the details you want on this one. This is useful in those scenarios when you want to stress test your system and check in real time what is going on with all the components, powers, temperatures, voltages, and so on. This is not only for the GPU, of course, but is also for the CPU in this case, for the motherboard, and lets you know all the voltages, for example, going on, what is going on with your voltages on your CPU, and so on. Also with the temps on the VRM, and so on. And here we have also the details on memory, so you can check the temps on memory, the voltages, and so on. This is something I find it to be really useful if you want to have immediately an overview on what's going on with the components of your system, and this might be helpful to identify if something is not working properly or if something is not working as it should be, because maybe you are going to have crazy high temps or the frequencies is going not to be okay, and also some voltage in some component might have strange values. Here we are at the end of this video. So these 5 tools are some of the must-have apps that I highly recommend to have on your build. Let me know in the comments your thoughts and if you are using any of these tools. If you find this video helpful, hit the like button and share the video. And if you are new here, consider subscribing. Thanks for watching.